They thought it would be funny. A cruel little joke among rich teenagers at a party too fancy for someone like her. She was just the overweight daughter of the maid, invisible, mocked, pitied. When they asked her to dance, everyone expected her to stumble, to humiliate herself, to confirm everything they already thought. But what she did instead silenced an entire room, changed a life, and exposed a truth no one was ready to admit. Asterisk, the Altons were a family known throughout the quiet, polished corners of Greenwich, Connecticut. They weren't just rich, they were legacy. The kind of people who had their names engraved on plaques at private school libraries and museum wings. The Alton family estate sat on 10 acres of meticulously manicured land, guarded by tall iron gates and rows of whispering birch trees. The house itself, a sprawling colonial mansion with its stone facade and ivy-laced walls, looked more like something out of a movie than a real home. Inside those grand walls lived Henry and Clarissa Alton, along with their 2 children, Everett, the ambitious 24-year-old law school graduate, and Amelia, the 17-year-old high school senior who lived her life like it was being broadcast for social media, because most of the time, it was. But this story isn't really about them. It's about someone who lived in the shadows of their world. Someone who walked past the same paintings, touched the same polished doorknobs, and saw the same view from the kitchen window, but was never truly seen. Her name was Maya. She was the daughter of Isabel, the Altons' longtime maid and housekeeper. Isabel had worked for the family since before Maya could even walk. She had been there through every scraped knee, every holiday, every family milestone. She knew where Clarissa kept her anxiety pills, where Henry stored the good whiskey, and how Amelia liked her laundry folded, not because they told her, but because after years of quiet observation, she just knew. Isabel was the type of woman who moved with silent grace, her presence like a soft breath in the room. She never spoke unless spoken to, never sat unless invited, and even then, rarely accepted. She raised Maya with the same sense of humility, care, and discipline. But unlike her mother, Maya didn't blend into the background so easily. From the time she was a little girl, Maya stood out. She was taller than most of her peers, with round cheeks, thick arms, and a frame that others loved to point out, but never understand. At school, she was often the target of whispered jokes and side glances. At the Alton estate, she was met with polite indifference. She wasn't part of the family, and she wasn't quite staff. She was just Isabel's daughter, and to most, that meant she didn't belong in either world. She spent much of her time buried in books. Classic literature, fantasy, poetry, it didn't matter. Stories were her escape. While the Alton kids grew up playing tennis and learning horseback riding, Maya found comfort in dance. Not the ballet classes she couldn't afford, but movement. Quiet, personal, private. In the safety of her small bedroom or the empty laundry room at night, she would put on headphones and let her body move. There was a power in it, a freedom, but no one knew that to everyone else. She was just the chubby, awkward daughter of the maid, the one who stayed quiet, who stared at her shoes, who didn't belong in their glossy, curated world. And perhaps no one treated her this way more consistently than Amelia. Alton. Amelia was the golden girl of Greenwich High, blonde, beautiful, with the kind of effortless charm that made teachers forgive late homework and boys trip over themselves just to say hi. But underneath that smile was a sharpness, a cold sense of entitlement that came from growing up in a world where everything had always been handed to her. She and Maya were the same age, but they lived in completely different realities. And even though Maya had known her for most of her life, even played with her once or twice as children, that friendship had long since faded into hierarchy. Now, Amelia barely acknowledged her. Occasionally, she'd toss a word over her shoulder, ask Maya to bring her something, or correct the way she was stacking the dishes. And sometimes, when her friends were around, She'd throw a glance toward Maya and laugh, not always cruelly, but always with distance. Maya was never in on the joke. She was the joke. Still, Maya never pushed back. She was used to it. She knew her mother relied on this job, knew how hard Isabel worked to make sure she had a roof over her head, clean clothes, and food on the table. Maya never wanted to make trouble. She stayed out of sight, helped where she could, and disappeared when things got too loud. But that all changed one warm Saturday evening in June. The Altons were throwing one of their signature parties, lavish garden celebration in honor of Amelia's 18th birthday. It was an event that had been planned for months, complete with a live band, gourmet catering, customized cocktails, and a dress code that looked like it came straight off of Paris. Runway. All of Amelia's friends from school, her private tennis club, and even a few freshmen from her future Ivy League university were in attendance. The backyard had been transformed into a glowing wonderland. Twinkling lights hung from trees, white. Drapes flowed in the breeze, and classical music swirled through the air like perfume. Waiters in black vests passed trays of shrimp and tiny hors d'oeuvres Maya couldn't pronounce. Maya wasn't supposed to be there. Her mother had instructed her to stay in the back quarters during the event. But as the catering staff scrambled to keep up and one of the servers called in sick last minute, Isabel hesitated, then asked Maya if she'd be willing to help. Maya didn't hesitate. "Of course," she said. And so, dressed in a simple black shirt and slacks, with her hair tied back in a low bun, Maya was handed a tray and sent out into the crowd, careful not to make eye contact, careful to stay invisible. But she wasn't invisible for long. Maya moved through the crowd like a ghost. The tray in her hands felt heavier than it should have, not because of the food, but because of the eyes she could feel landing on her back. The laughter, the chatter, the glittering crowd in satin and silk, none of it felt real. She didn't belong there. She knew it. And worse, they knew it. Some guests barely looked at her as she passed. Others gave a polite nod, the kind reserved for waitstaff and valets. But one group noticed her a little too much. The circle of friends around Amelia, clustered by the edge of the outdoor dance floor, drinks in hand, eyes already gleaming with mischief. Amelia saw her first dot at first. Maya thought she might simply look away. But no, Amelia leaned toward her boyfriend Chase and whispered something in his ear. He turned, saw Maya, and laughed under his breath. That was all it took. Within seconds, their whole group had noticed her. "Isn't that the Maid's daughter?" one of the girls said aloud, not even bothering to lower her voice. "She's still here?" Another muttered with a fake pout. "I thought they kept the help in the back." Chase grinned. He was tall, smug, and bored. A dangerous combination. "We should invite her to dance." There was a flicker of hesitation among the group, then a ripple of giggles. It wasn't an invitation. It was a performance, a setup, a game. "Come on," Chase said, already stepping forward. "It'll be fun." Maya had just turned around with an empty tray when she saw him approaching. For a split second, she thought he might need something. Maybe more napkins, maybe a drink. But the smile on his face wasn't kind. It was sharp, too confident, too rehearsed. "Hey," Chase said smoothly, "you know how to dance?" Maya blinked. "Excuse me? Dance," he repeated. "You've been floating around here like a shadow. We thought maybe you could, show us some moves." There was laughter behind him. Not loud, not yet, but enough that Maya knew she was the target. Her throat went dry. I'm just helping my mother." Come on," Chase said, stepping aside and gesturing toward the small stage where the band had shifted into something upbeat. "Just one song, don't be shy." More faces turned now. More eyes on her. The spotlight she never wanted suddenly burned down on her chest, her arms, her weight. She felt every inch of her body at once, heavy and exposed. From behind Chase, she saw Amelia watching with that same practiced smile. A smile that said, This is what you get for pretending you're one of us. Maya could have walked away. She could have shaken her head, disappeared behind the linen-covered tables, and hidden in the kitchen until it was over. But something inside her, something quiet and stubborn and tired of being small, refused to move. "Okay," she said. Chase raised his eyebrows. "Wait, seriously?" She nodded, and a strange silence fell around them. The group hadn't expected her to say yes. That wasn't part of the joke. The joke was supposed to be her, stammering and running away, but she didn't. She stepped onto the open patio where the lights glowed against the polished tiles, took a slow breath, and let the tray slide from her hand onto a nearby table. Her heart pounded in her ears. Her palms were slick with sweat. But her feet were ready. The band was playing something jazzy and fast. She waited a beat, closed her eyes, and when the downbeat hit, she moved, not like they expected. Not clumsy, not stiff, not apologetic. She moved with confidence, grace, and rhythm that didn't match the girl they thought they knew. She turned, spun, let the music carry her. Her arms, soft and full, moved with elegance. Her feet stepped with purpose. She didn't try to look like the other girls in their slim dresses and heels. She looked like herself. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. Gasps rose from the crowd. Real ones, someone whispered. "Is that the maid's daughter?" Someone else muttered, "No way. Look at her go." Chase stood frozen, unsure if he should keep smiling or not. Amelia's face twisted into something unreadable. Not quite anger, not quite embarrassment, but close to fear. Because Maya wasn't playing her role. She wasn't being the joke. She was taking the stage they gave her and owning it. As the song neared its climax, Maya finished with a spin and dropped into a final pose. She didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just stood there, breathing hard, sweat on her forehead, chest rising and falling, and the crowd clapped. Not everyone, not at first, but enough. The silence broke with applause. Some of it was hesitant. Some was surprised, but it was real. And then came the whispers, not the cruel ones she was used to, but curious ones. Admiring ones. Where did she learn to dance like that? Was that real? She's actually kind of amazing. Maya didn't wait for permission. She stepped off the dance floor, picked up the tray again, and walked past Chase without looking at him. He didn't say a word. Neither did Amelia, but Maya knew she had taken something from them, something more powerful than mockery. She had taken their expectations and shattered them in front of everyone. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Maya returned to the kitchen with trembling hands. Not from fear, not anymore, but from the rush, the adrenaline still pulsing through her body like electricity. Her mother, Isabel, glanced up from organizing the dessert trays and did a double take when she saw Maya's flushed face. "What happened?" she asked, her voice low and urgent. "You've been gone too long." Maya hesitated. What could she say? That she'd just danced in front of 100 people? That she'd been tricked, but instead of falling into their trap, she lit it. "On fire? I was fine," she said quietly. "I just helped with something out there." Isabel looked at her daughter's face for a moment longer, then slowly nodded. She didn't press further. Maybe she saw the way Maya's shoulders were squared differently. Maybe she caught a glimpse of something proud and unshaken in her daughter's eyes. Back in the garden, the party continued, but something had shifted. Music still played, the lights still shimmered, but the laughter had taken on a different tone. Less mocking, more curious. Conversations buzzed in small circles. "Did you see her? Who was she again? She's the maid's daughter? Wait, are you serious?" But the group that had originally set her up, Amelia and her friends, stood off. To the side, expressions tight and unreadable. Chase looked especially uncomfortable. He had laughed first, louder than anyone. And now, he looked like a man who'd set a trap for a rabbit and accidentally caught a lion. What the hell was that? Amelia snapped, her voice sharp. She danced, Chase muttered, shrugging. I didn't think you didn't think what? That she'd be good? The others stood in awkward silence, shifting on their heels. One girl bit her lip and said softly, honestly, she was amazing. Amelia whipped around to glare at her. She's not amazing. She's a maid's daughter. She probably watches TikTok videos and copies them in her room. That's not talent. That's pathetic. But her words didn't land the way they used to. The others didn't echo her opinion. They didn't laugh or nod or join in. Like before, some looked away. One of the guys even said, still, she danced better than any of us. Amelia clenched her jaw. For the first time in her life, she was the one being ignored. Inside the kitchen, Maya quietly stacked dishes and helped with cleanup. She kept her head down, but something inside her had broken free. A quiet defiance, a pride she hadn't felt in years. She could still hear the faint echo of claps in her memory, could still feel the music in her blood. Even now, the floor beneath her feet felt like a stage. Then the unexpected happened. Near the end of the night, just as the guests were beginning to leave, a woman approached her in the hallway, tall, elegant, with dark gray hair tied neatly back and a designer bag clutched in her hand. She looked out of place among the younger crowd, but her eyes were kind, sharp, and thoughtful. You're the girl who danced earlier, she said gently. Maya straightened, immediately nervous. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No. Don't apologize, the woman smiled. That was stunning. Maya blinked, unsure what to say. I'm Evelyn Hart. I run a performing arts foundation in New York. I've spent the last 20 years watching auditions and choreographed productions. And what you just did out there, that wasn't rehearsed. Was it? No, Maya whispered. It wasn't planned. That, Evelyn said, is raw talent. Isabel had just turned the corner in time to hear the last part. She froze, wide-eyed, clutching a tray of empty wine glasses. Evelyn continued, have you ever considered professional training? A summer program? Anything formal? Maya shook her head slowly. We've never had the money for anything like that. Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out a sleek, white business card. Well, I want to give you a chance. There's an audition in 2 weeks, not public. Very low-key. Just some choreographers and foundation reps. I want you to be there. Full scholarship. No fees, no cost. Maya stared at the card as if it were glowing. You don't have to decide now, Evelyn said. But don't let this moment pass you by. What you did tonight, it was real. And with that, she walked away, leaving Maya and her mother in stunned silence. By Monday, the whispers had reached school. Videos had surfaced online. Blurry, low-quality clips recorded on phones during the party, showing Maya spinning, stepping, commanding the dance floor like a force of nature. The comment sections filled with confusion and awe. Wait, who is this? Why is the maid's daughter dancing better than actual dancers? She legit killed it. I wasn't ready. At school, people who had never spoken to her before suddenly made eye contact. A few even smiled. A couple of girls complimented her in the hallway, awkward but genuine. Amelia, on the other hand, burned with quiet rage. She had spent her entire high school life curating perfection, building a brand of beauty, popularity, and dominance. And now Maya, the girl she used to ignore, the one she made fun of, had stolen the spotlight, not through popularity games, not through gossip, but through pure talent. Amelia tried to play it off. It was a fluke, she told people. She probably practiced that for months. But no one seemed to care. No one laughed with her anymore. At home, Maya stared at Evelyn's business card every night before bed. She held it in her hands like it was a ticket to another life. And maybe it was that Isabel had been quiet about the whole thing. She never pushed, never pried. But one night, as they sat at the small kitchen table together, eating rice and chicken, Isabel finally spoke. "You were brave," she said simply. Maya looked up. "And you were beautiful, Mihajja." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. "I didn't mean to make a scene." "You didn't," Isabel replied. "They did. But you turned it into something else." Maya clutched the card. "I think I want to go," she said quietly. "I want to see if I can really do it." Isabel smiled, eyes misty. "Then you go. And you show them what I've known since you were a little girl. That your gift is bigger than their world." 2 weeks felt like a breath and a storm all at once. Maya had never prepared for something like this before. She had no formal training, no coaches, no mirrors in her bedroom, just a small floor space, a pair of old sneakers, and her raw instinct. Each night, after school and after helping her mother with chores, she would shut her door, put on her headphones, and dance. Sometimes she cried while she moved. Sometimes she stopped mid-step, doubting everything. But always she kept going. Her mother watched from the hallway in silence, never interrupting. She didn't offer advice. She didn't ask questions. But her presence was a comfort, the constant reminder that Maya was not alone. When the morning of the audition came, Maya wore her cleanest clothes, a plain black t-shirt, leggings, and her old sneakers with the worn soles. Her mother handed her a packed lunch and hugged her tight, whispering in Spanish, "Dios camina contigo." God walks with you. The audition was held in a studio tucked inside a tall building in Manhattan. It smelled like resin and hardwood and the faint perfume of talent and nerves. Maya stood in the hallway outside the studio door, surrounded by girls in sleek leotards, bun-tight hair, and perfect posture. They talked in low, confident tones about choreographers they'd trained with and recitals they'd done. She didn't belong here. The thought came like a punch. She could feel the sweat forming on the back of her neck, her stomach churning, her fingers clenching the strap of her backpack. She could turn back now. No one would blame her, but then she remembered Evelyn's words. That was real, and she stepped inside. The panel at the front of the studio consisted of 4 people, Evelyn among them, sitting behind a long folding table with clipboards and neutral faces. There were no smiles, no warmth, just observation. Maya was called up 5th. She walked to the center of the room, introduced herself, and then the music started. A slow, haunting instrumental piece with rising strings and pulsing drums. She didn't overthink it. She couldn't. She let her body remember the pain, the joy, the kitchen floors she used to spin on, the loneliness of being laughed at, the quiet pride of that garden moment. And she moved, not perfect, but powerful. Each step was a release. Each motion was a memory. She danced like she had nothing to lose, because in her mind, she didn't. When the music ended, there was no applause, just scribbled notes. The panel thanked her. Evelyn gave the smallest nod, barely noticeable, but it was enough to keep Maya from collapsing on the inside. She left the studio not knowing what had happened, whether she had done enough, whether they had seen her, not just her shape, her weight, her background, but her. For days afterward, she waited. Until finally, an envelope arrived. Inside, a letter with the words, "Congratulations. You've been accepted into the Summer Arts Fellowship. Full scholarship. Training begins June 15th. Maya screamed when she read it. Isabel dropped her dish, towel, and ran into the room, alarmed, and then cried when Maya showed her the letter. Their tiny apartment had never felt so full of light. Word of Maya's acceptance eventually reached school. Evelyn's foundation was respected, and soon, even teachers began to treat her with a new kind of quiet admiration. But not everyone reacted with kindness. Amelia hadn't forgotten. On Maya's final day of school before summer began, Amelia approached her locker with that same cold smile she used at the party. But something about it seemed forced now. Thinner. So, Amelia said, leaning against the locker beside hers. You're really going through with the whole dancing thing. Maya didn't answer right away. She placed her books into her bag calmly, not giving Amelia the satisfaction of a reaction. You know it won't last, Amelia said, eyes narrowing. You'll be the token girl. The inspiration they bring in for their little diversity pamphlets. Then they'll forget you. Maya looked up, and for the first time in her life, really looked at Amelia, not with fear, not with anger, with clarity. You used to laugh at me because you thought I wanted to be like you, Maya said quietly. But I don't. Amelia's smile faltered. I never wanted your parties, your cold friends, your fake laughs. I just wanted to be me, and now I get to be. Amelia didn't speak. Her face twisted slightly, as if trying to find the next insult, the next jab. But nothing came. Maya zipped her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked away. And for the first time, Amelia didn't follow. The summer program changed everything. Maya trained 8 hours a day, learning styles she'd only seen online. Ballet, modern, contemporary, freestyle. She worked harder than she ever had in her life. She was behind the others technically, yes, but emotionally? Artistically, she was present. She made friends. Real ones. Dancers who didn't care about her body, her background, or the rumors of a party back in Connecticut. They cared about how she moved, how she felt. And she felt alive. By the end of the summer, she had been offered a permanent scholarship at the academy. The kind of opportunity that could change the course of her entire future. And when she danced in the final performance showcase, in a spotlight, in front of hundreds, she didn't just feel proud, she felt whole. It was a year later when Maya returned to the Alton estate. Not as a maid's daughter, not as a quiet, invisible girl with a tray in her hands, but as someone entirely different. She had grown in ways no mirror could fully reflect. There was confidence in her posture now, in the way she moved through rooms. It wasn't arrogance, it was presence. She occupied space. She no longer apologized for existing. She had received an invitation, surprisingly formal, written on fine cream paper. The Altons cordially invite you to their annual summer gala, honoring youth artists and community supporters. She hadn't expected it. She'd even considered declining. But Evelyn, now both her mentor and her friend, encouraged her to go. Sometimes, Evelyn said gently, we don't return to places to prove anything to others. We go to remind ourselves of how far we've come. And so Maya agreed. She wore a deep burgundy dress that complemented her curves and highlighted her rich skin. Her hair was styled in soft curls that framed her face. There was no tray in her hands this time, only a quiet sense of purpose. As she stepped through the familiar gates of the Alton estate, the memories came rushing back. The stone walkway, the columns, the winding garden paths, the fountain where she used to sit and read while her mother worked. Inside, the house buzzed with guests. But unlike last time, the eyes that turned toward Maya weren't dismissive or mocking. They were curious. Some even lit up with recognition. That's her, someone whispered. That's the girl from the foundation. She danced at Lincoln Center last fall, didn't she? I heard she's getting a full scholarship to Juilliard. Maya didn't shrink beneath the attention this time. She nodded politely, smiled when spoken to, and moved with calm grace. She was no longer just Isabel's daughter. She was Maya Rivera, dancer, artist, and survivor of a world that once tried to define her worth by her silence. Her mother stood by the catering table, speaking with one of the staff. When she saw Maya walk in, her eyes widened, shimmering with pride. She mouthed a single word, Hermosa. Beautiful. The Altons themselves were distant, though Clarissa approached Maya with a thin, polite smile and a glass of sparkling water. You've done very well, she said, her tone hesitant but not unkind. Amelia mentioned your scholarship. Maya accepted the compliment with a nod, but nothing more. She didn't owe them anything, no explanations, no performances. Her success wasn't theirs to share. And then, as expected, came Amelia. She looked different too. Thinner, paler, her eyes darker than Maya remembered. Her once effortless confidence seemed brittle now. She approached slowly, heels clicking. Softly on the marble floor. "I didn't think you'd come," Amelia said. Maya met her gaze. "I almost didn't." There was a pause, a long, awkward silence between two young women who had once lived in the same space, but in entirely different worlds. "You're kind of famous now," Amelia said, trying to sound casual. "People talk about that night." "The dancing," Maya gave a soft chuckle. "People remember it for different reasons, I guess." Another silence. Then, to Maya's surprise, Amelia looked away, almost ashamed. "I was awful to you," she said. "Back then. At the party. I didn't think you'd actually do what you did." Maya studied her. There was no satisfaction in hearing the apology. No deep desire for revenge. Only a quiet sense of release. "I didn't do it for you," Maya replied. "I did it for me. And for every girl who's been laughed at just for existing." Amelia nodded, swallowing hard. "I guess I deserved that." Maya offered a small smile. "I'm not here to punish you, Amelia. I'm just not that girl anymore." And she wasn't. That night, Maya was invited to perform one piece, a solo. Evelyn introduced her on stage, listing her achievements over the past year. Scholarships, performances, awards. But it wasn't the titles that mattered. When the lights dimmed and the music began, Maya stepped forward, barefoot, breath steady, heart full. She danced. This time, it wasn't out of defiance or pain. It was a celebration. Her body moved not to fight the silence, but to fill it. The audience disappeared, the walls vanished, and all that remained was the music and her truth. When the final note faded and she stood still in the spotlight, the applause rose like a wave, thunderous, genuine, unending. Somewhere in the crowd, Amelia clapped too. So did Clarissa Alton. And so did Isabel, her hands trembling, tears running down her cheeks. For the first time, everyone in that room saw Maya for who she truly was, not a punchline, not a servant's daughter, but a force of art. Maya would go on to attend Juilliard, to dance on stages across Europe and Asia, to choreograph pieces inspired by her roots, her scars, her resilience. She would speak at schools, telling young girls like her, too brown, too big, too invisible, that they were enough. That they didn't have to wait for someone to choose them. They could choose themselves, because sometimes the greatest revenge is not revenge at all. It's success. It's rising. It's dancing when they never thought you could. Some stories aren't just about the people in them. They're about all of us. Maya Rivera was never meant to be the star of someone else's joke, but she was. Not because she lacked talent, not because she didn't belong, but because many people, for too long, have been trained to see different as less. A different body, a different background, a different status, and suddenly, the world decides how high you're allowed to reach. But Maya shattered that. Tried to humiliate her with an invitation, not of kindness, but of cruelty. They asked her to dance thinking she would fail, that she would fall apart, that she would prove them right. Instead, she proved them wrong. She turned their mockery into a moment, their trap into a turning point, and their laughter into applause. Because the truth is, we live in a world that often underestimates people based on appearances. A world that's more comfortable with labels than with understanding. But when someone dares to stand up, or in Maya's case, dance forward, they remind us all what it means to break the mold. This wasn't just a key story about a party, or a dance, or even a scholarship. This was a story about power. The kind of power that doesn't come from money or status or popularity, but from knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone else define it. Maya didn't need revenge. She didn't need to destroy anyone. All she had to do was show up and be brilliant. So, to anyone who's ever been laughed at for not looking the part, to anyone who's ever been told they weren't good enough, to anyone who's ever stood at the edge of the spotlight, wondering if they could dare to step in, let Maya be your reminder. You are not invisible, you are not the joke, and you don't need permission to rise. So go. Dance like no one expects you to. Shine where they tried to dim you and leave them speechless, because the greatest revenge is becoming unforgettable.